Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Rocket Lab Weekly episode 15. It is. I just see that I messed it up on the title. We have two 14s. So one of them is a 15. Can't believe that it's been 15 weeks that we are doing this. Matt, you're practically, yeah, it's very impressive. You're practically a co-host. I'm going to call you co-host from
I just like to be here. It's always fun to hang out and chat about rockets. And as you probably similar to me, every time I think about the company, every time a little bit of piece of news comes out, I just feel more and more confident every day about the success that I believe that this company's going to have, and the success that Peter Beck and everyone else that's over there in New Zealand and Long Beach and in Virginia and Maryland, and as well New Mexico as well. They have some spaces there too. So very excited to be able to chat about it and give it any sort of credit that they're doing. I'm just here to spectate and here for enthusiasm. They're the ones doing the hard work.
Yeah, really, really well said. And such a good segue, because I wanted to show you something and get your opinion on this. So this is the stock chart of Rocket Lab, right? And we started at $10. We went higher, and then we fell down to just below 4, and then we've been very, very range bound for the last 1.5 years actually. And as far as I know, I have only been following Rocket Lab the last, 3 to 4 months. But as far as I've seen, they always only guide to the next quarter, and they're very tight-lipped about what they are doing. So for what you will see why this is important. So this candle right here is the day before the Electron failed. So then Electron failed. And we fell 7%. And then in this period, they so much has happened to the stock. They found out what was the reason for the failure. They, instead of guiding for 1 quarter, they guided for 2 quarters ahead, where they basically said that they're going to do 100% growth year over year compared to Q1 2024. So that was a new thing. Then a bit later on the conference call, it came out. No, sorry, it was at the same time that they are planning 22 launches next year, which is an insanely good launch cadence. We have been talking about it endlessly. That for them to increase the gross margin, they need the cadence to go up, and this is super good news. Then this is the day when the candle just before we return to launch. We return to launch on a flawless flight. We fall more. This day is a 10.83% day, and we fall deeper than before we failed the launch. This is the first part where it doesn't make any sense. Then this candle is when we get a $500 million contract. Then this is the day when we have an investor call about the $500 million contract, where they basically announced that Rocket Lab is a space prime, and the government trusts them, and they're in the running for similar and bigger, both government and commercial contracts. And we are here. The stock price is practically back at the same point we were before failing the Electron launch, and it doesn't make any fucking sense to me. And I'm wondering, am I the only one, or do you also feel that something is way off here?
No, I mean, I talked to my buddies about this quite a bit, because I've started to, on a smaller scale, right? A lot of them don't really participate much in the stock market, but they'll ask me, they're like, why do you think that this is? And it's like, just based off the future value of what this company will be able to provide, the fact that it's only at a $2.5 billion market cap just seems very crazy to me. With the now, and we talked a little bit about Palantir Weekly yesterday, it's like, now that you have the Department of Defense with the HASTE contracts, which is like, okay, well, that's a good steady stream of income that you're going to be getting, once that kind of gets up and running full time. And then now you have this new contract that's with Space Force, or the Space Development Agency, which is a subset of Space Force, like that being out till 2027, 2030 timeframe. It just goes to show you the confidence that both of these government agencies have within the organization, and it just doesn't make sense as to why people haven't come around. And I think the problem with it is it's It's categorized with SPAC companies. It's categorized with space companies, both of which have been historically not good performers. But it's actually pretty interesting because I joined a few Reddit forums, and I pulled up some stuff actually, and they reminded me about what the revenue forecast once they did the SPAC presentation was. So this is going back from March 2021 timeframe. And believe it or not, they had the forecast for 2024 to be $450 million. And so even with all the setbacks that we've had, with the launch anomalies and everything like that, with the continued supply chain constraints that we had during the pandemic, etc., the fact that they're able to still get back to $450 million next year is pretty impressive. And if their forecast is right, the revenue should be going up closer to 700 million in 2025. And I anticipate that likely has to do with a couple launches from Neutron. And, who knows what's really going to happen with that. But I'm just very impressed. I mean, you think about it, we're getting to a place now where price to sales is at a 6x almost, 6 to 7x. If fiscal year 24 meets its targets of about $400 million in revenue. So anyway, it's just an interesting time. I agree with you. It doesn't make sense. It does seem like something that is literally about to take off, no pun intended. And I'm really excited to be a part of this community for that process, because a lot of people like the growth that we've seen, Vince, over the past 3 to 4 months. Really, it started just before you started hosting Rocket Lab Weekly. You started to see that kind of excitement, and I see that growing exponentially more and more as each week continues. People are starting to fully understand that, hey, there is another company out there other than SpaceX that is doing really great things, and they're going to continue to persist. And they've launched already 40 vehicles, and for the past several years in a row, they've been the second most launched vehicle in the United States, and they're launching more than other countries in the world, right? That's particularly one company on its own. So it's pretty interesting.
I think their launch complex has launched the most, if I remember correctly, the most rockets anywhere on the planet. It's just the US as a country launches more, but it's because they have more pads. I think, I hope I remember wrong, but I think Peter Beck said it in one of the interviews.
I heard that. Yeah, I kind of scratched my head, but I heard the same. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if he's discounting something or I the way I know him, he wouldn't be saying it if it wasn't true. So yeah. And I'm also very, very excited. I mean, nothing that we say here is investment advice. It's more like we are sharing our research and enthusiasm, and then you guys can make up your own minds about what you think about this stock. But these situations, they make me very, very excited for the retail investor, because when a company gets exponentially better with time, and then the stock price stays the same, and like, it's so funny because like Rocket Lab didn't go like where I started this monologue. It was already at a very low point in the valuation. Like, even if you do your valuation on conservative numbers, it's way undervalued where the company started this, and then things got like exponentially better, and then we're still at this way undervalued period. So it's exciting to see this. A lot of people, when I write about this on Twitter, they're like, why are you complaining about the stock price? You didn't invest in the stock. And it's like, I'm not complaining. I'm just pointing out what I see, and I'm excited for this. This is what gets me pumped as a content creator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. So Monday, there was a lot of things happening. One of them was Rocket Lab had an investor call about them becoming a space prime. Here is the presentation that they have released, and I was thinking that we could just quickly go over what was said here and what is the biggest takeaways. Matt, I'm sure you have listened to this, right?
Yeah, I listened to the majority. I didn't get through all the questions. I got through about 3/4 of them, but I think shout out to the community, right? Because Francisco was actually one that brought it to my attention that it would probably be the SDA, and so I just took it for granted, right? And then luckily they came out on Monday and said it was just that. So really good on the community to provide those insights before they're officially announced by the organization itself. And continue. You guys are the reason why we do this, and hopefully we're able to foster that community and continue to grow it as this thing grows to be a 25 billion, 50 billion, or hopefully even a $75 billion company, maybe even larger, depending on what ends up happening. But it was cool to see, and the fact that it is a Space Force contract through the SDA makes me pretty happy, and gives you a little bit more confidence that, hey, this thing's going to be around for a while. And they don't give out contracts like this to just anybody, and so that makes me excited to see that this is almost differentiating themselves in a league of their own in terms of where this company is compared to some of the other bad boys that are out there. And I was actually looking once again at the initial SPAC investor presentation, and it lists like other competitors, and 3 out of the other 6 that were on that list are already defunct. And we know that 2 or 3 others of them are struggling and not probably too far behind them. So it's pretty cool to be able to see that and add that to the feather and Rocket Lab's cap, because, hey, this is a big deal. Like, it makes it so that I think I'll leave it to that on this slide, but there's another piece in this slide, that slide pack, that makes me really amped up, and that's the spending for the SDA or the Space Force going forward, and what potential Rocket Lab could have in that.
Exactly. So, okay, I mean, we can just quickly go over the sites. So here they are talking about the contract and how, this is just that it's a 550 million contract, and it confirms Rocket Lab's establishment as a government prime, thanks to their ability to deliver advanced technologies, schedule certainty, and price. And I think this, to me, was one of the biggest takeaways, that they are able to basically compete for such contracts. They have the brand recognition and the name recognition to be able to win these contracts. And these are not small contracts. These are not like one satellite launch and one manufacture, one satellite. So that was very bullish. And then I think that this, here they're talking about the problems that they're solving, and then they talk about what things they are able to manufacture. And the reason I think why they did this investor day is to, one, communicate to the investors that they are a prime, but also one is to communicate to the industry of, how much parts they are able to manufacture, and that you can have certainty of their price and of their schedule, because they pretty much own the most important parts of the supply chain. And this is the one that gets you excited, Matt.
Yeah, I did want to touch on that second slide. You don't have to go back, but talking specifically about the pieces in which Rocket Lab is going to be able to provide the star trackers, the operating system, the solar panels, etc. This is the second major contract, other than maybe the Global Star contract that's being done for Apple, that is truly kind of like a large commercial contract that maybe multiple people are actually following and thinking about. And so to me, this just establishes not the fact that Rocket Lab can just launch vehicles into the air, but it can also provide the vehicles themselves. That gets me fired up. And I think that the reason why this is such a big deal is exactly what people are talking about in the chat section, is, are they going to get the next deals? Are they going to be able to continue down this path of being literally the go-to guys that are able to provide what they need? And I feel like with the amount of facilities that we've acquired over the past 6 months to a year, the Long Beach facilities from Virgin Orbit, the facilities in Maryland that have been around for almost going on 100 years now, I feel confident that we're going to have the capacity to take on more opportunities like this. And not only that, but it's going to be easier to forecast going forward. So diving deeper into this, it makes it seem like that there's going to be continued partnership in the future with these guys, right? You have this budget that they can kind of have here, and you can see the transport and the tracking budget that they have going forward is going to start increasing to over $1 billion per annum on both sides. And how much of that is the Space Force going to allocate towards Rocket Lab is unknown to us. We've gotten $500 million over, let's just say the next 4 or 5 years to be able to deploy that sort of contract. It's about 100 so million a year. That's like, let's just say it's 20% of the budget. You're right. Where's that other 80% going? Knowing that the capability of Rocket Lab and knowing that there's so few other competitors that are differentiating themselves, I'm very curious, right? That just means to us, it's more likely that we get an additional 10%, 20% than maybe some of the other players on the market. And I recognize there needs to be diversity amongst all the different contractors so they can continue to bid against each other, etc. But, you're getting to a place where you're starting to lower the amount of potential, and that brain recognition that you're talking about is truly differentiating Rocket Lab comparatively to some of the other contractors out there. So very excited to see this initial contract, and I'm sure there'll be many, many more in the future.
I just want to say, do you remember a few Rocket Lab weeklies ago, we were speaking about that, like if we are scared that they are being like too spread out in their operations and they're taking over all these facilities, and what are they even going to use them for? And it's so interesting that we always come to the conclusion that they really know what they're doing. Like maybe they were anticipating these contracts coming in. I think it was when they just acquired the latest facility in the Northrop. I never know how to say their name. Northrop G facility in Virginia. We were talking about if this is like a warning sign for us that they're like becoming too all over the place. And I'm pretty sure now, having this data, that is a preparation for this contract and hopefully future contracts. Then the second clue is that in the earnings call, Adam Spice said that, yeah, we're ready for $1 billion contracts. And the announcement was like, we were awarded a $0.5 billion contract. I thought that was so nicely put, because they're alluding to the fact that there's, at least this is what I think they're doing, that there is many $1 billion contracts coming, and this is the first $1 billion contract with $0.5 billion. Really clever marketing.
I mean, there's a lot. You think about it, Neutron and the fact that Neutron and the fact that Rocket Lab are focusing on the future of space infrastructure. They're focusing on medium launch. They're focusing on a bunch of different avenues. You think it's not out of the realm where Rocket Lab will be sending people to space. I think that they have the capability with a medium launch vehicle to do that. How they're going to retrofit it is beyond me, but I have fairly good confidence that the Neutron rocket would be able to potentially send people to space. So very curious what's going to happen with that. They've teased it as well in previous investor presentations for people that have not seen that. And I'm curious to see what ends up coming to fruition about the space infrastructure piece. But that could be the realm where if you're able to sign up for within what like Falcon 9 is doing with sending people back and forth to the ISS, International Space Station, and also just contracting for the future space station as well, because we're coming down to the fact that thing's been up there for quite some time. That's going to have to be retired at some point. A new one's going to have to be built, etc. Those are big $1 billion multi-country collaborative sort of deals that I don't know numbers off the top of my head, but to be able to do something like that now would anticipate be tens of billions of dollars to put something like that into space again. And so, with everything that has to happen, right? All the launches, all the different pieces of kit that have to all be collaborated together. Like, I'm very curious to see, when people start estimating and coming to fruition what a future space station would look like. And all the different, you wouldn't just have a Rocket Lab involved. You would have a SpaceX involved. You would have so many different people involved. And so very curious to see what ends up happening. And I feel like, looking back, I'm not going to present it, but, my forecasts of revenue for the company are way under what the company projects. And, I always assumed looking at this, I'm like, they're not going to hit this $450 million target for 2024. And now I'm looking and I'm like, they know way more than I do. And same thing with those guys at Space Force, right? Like those guys know way more to look for than I do. And the fact that they're like, yeah, we'll trust you with $500 million, and it's not even, a big deal to them, means to me that we're on to something here. But anyway, I'll hand it back. I went on a little bit of a monologue there, but
no problem. So back to the presentation. That was the whole thing, and then it was Q&A. Again, my biggest takeaway is that basically Peter Beck confirmed that they are in the running for multiple similar government contracts and bigger, and he said and multiple similar commercial and bigger. And that gets me really excited, because basically we started the episode with showing the stock chart how we got the contract, and then within 6 days we lost all those gains, meaning that the contract is being completely discounted. And on top of it, as many people also mentioned in the chat, that I think that if they get one more contract like this, I think they will be cash flow positive, because they're like, yeah, we have to get to the next earnings and get all the data. I'm not sure how much of this contract they counted with when they announced the Q3 projections for Q1. And if they get one more contract like this, I think that we're going to see them cash flow positive. But we need to get.
How can you say that, Vince? Just weeks ago.
I know. But you're right. And it's okay to change as the data changes. This is the
a lot has been realized. A lot has been realized in the past few weeks. Yeah.
Because also that this contract, on this investor call, they said that they are able to recognize revenue straight away. It's still back heavy, meaning that there will be more revenue recognized later on the contract, but it's better than the Global Star contract. So I was doing a little bit of numbers for myself and looking at what this will mean in gross margins, and again, it depends on how much they knew that this contract was coming, because if all the Q1 projection was based on this contract, then yes, they will not be cash flow positive. But if they were sandbagging the Q1 projections and they have a very massive lineup for Q1 to begin with, and on top of it they get this contract, then they will be very close to cash flow break even. Because as far as I understand, the Global Star manufacturing, they have not been able to recognize revenue, or not as much revenue as they wanted to, and they will really be able to get paid and recognize revenue now. So maybe the reason why they were guiding for this 100 million quarter was because of that, and had nothing to do with this contract that they got. So these are my questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm fairly confident that we'll get to a place where we're going to start getting very close. Is it going to be first quarter? I don't know, but to me, just recognizing they're going to make close to, let's just say $100 million in revenue in the first quarter alone. Gross profit of that is going to be close to 30-35%. And so from from the OpEx percentage, I would say you're going to be close to $40 million a year. So I think you're close. Whether or not you end up with EBITDA this quarter, I think you will end up with EBITDA. Will you end up with free cash though? I don't know, right? Because I think you still have a lot of stuff that you end up having to pay for that.
Yes, for sure.
Give you free cash.
And you see, another thing is that we have this $400 million in cash, right? And then if you're burning 40 million per quarter, then you have 10 quarters of runway. But if your burn significantly decreases because of these contracts to, let's say, 10 million, then you almost start having this endless runway, because you know that then if you're burning 10 million, then you have 40 quarters. What is that? Like 10 years of runway, and you're expected to be profitable in, 2-3 years. So like almost that in itself for me handles any doubts of their liquidity and bankruptcy fears and all this kind of stuff. For me, clearly not for the market. That's why I think that's one of the main heavyweights on the stock that needs to be lifted. Like this, are they going to run out of money, and how are they going to forward with financing? This is my belief. I don't know what you think, but I think that will make the biggest change in the stock once this fear is lifted from the institutional investors.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's kind of the big if and but, right? I think a lot of people still think that this company is burning cash, to which I feel like we're kind of climbing down in terms of the amount of cash that we're burning on a quarterly basis. Although I'm eating my words, looking at last quarter being close to $50 million of cash burn, but I think we're getting close to the end, and I think once you get the Archimedes test done and some of the other tank tests done, I think the majority of the cash is going to be spent, other than getting the rocket on the pad and getting a good launch. So I'm fairly confident that we're headed towards the right direction, and that we should be closer to break even than I think a lot of people believe.
Yeah, I agree. We got a very interesting question here. Vince and Matt, what do you think if they get those contracts, and is the number of skilled engineers, employees count a potential risk? Would they be able to keep up the pace? What do you think, Mr. Matt?
I don't really know. I know that they've done. It's a good question. I will say, after they announced Neutron in early 2023, throughout 2023, I was looking at the available jobs, and it looks like they filled them all pretty well. And so I'm kind of curious, and that kind of always gets me kind of scratching my head. It's like, well, depending if you grow too quickly, you might not be able to maintain culture, etc. That kind of scares me, because Rocket Lab has a really good culture that I agree with a lot, and I think they've been able to maintain it very well. But with increasing the amount of facilities, etc., that kind of is something that scares me, is kind of deterioration of that culture. But I think a lot of people believe in Beck, and I think a lot of people like us, I think, understand the culture more than maybe some other folks. So to answer the question, I don't have an answer for you. But at the end of the day, I could see it as maybe not necessarily a potential risk in the short term, but in the long term, could it eat away at the culture? And that's what I'm most fearful of is, it might be able to get Rocket Lab to where they need to be in the next 2-3 years. But as they persist and continue to grow, could that culture be eventually eaten away? And I think that's more of a long-term sort of question. But I think that for now, it won't take too many people to do what they need to do, to realize these are still kind of very expensive things to put into space and specialized. And I think the average revenue per employee is pretty expansive. So I don't think you need to hire that many people. But if it continues to grow at the pace that it is growing, that's something that maybe gets you into question in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, my thoughts were that when I first read the question, like, I don't know, but then I thought a little bit more about it. And I think that because there has been so many space startups and a lot of them are failing, I think that you naturally have a lot of talent left over when these companies go belly up. Number one. And number two is, I think that Rocket Lab is becoming a very prominent player in space. And I think that they also attract talent. Like, I imagine that if you want to work for a successful space company, like you have SpaceX, if you want your work-life balance and get nothing done, you go to Blue Origin. And then if you want like a startup where you can, get sweat capital and stock-based compensation and really make a difference and maybe become wealthy in the process, then you have Rocket Lab and I don't know who else you have. So I would imagine that they attract talent right now. This is, I cannot back it up with facts, but just a thought.
Yeah, and to answer the next question, somebody's asking specifically, does it concern me that these are a lot of government focused contracts? And I would say yes and no. I mean, there's pros and cons to that, right? I think that if a lot of other countries, and I'll name a few, India, China, many of these other countries that are also in a race for space and make sure that their industries are kind of getting back to the moon, etc. I'd say for right now, I'm not too concerned about it because you have those other countries, and with that, I think that that's part of the reason why the SDA wants these contracts to go through is to maintain space defense, etc. Because it looks like more and more countries are getting access to space. If that wasn't occurring, I would be a little bit more skeptical because look what happened when, I'm not saying this for to be political, I'm just stating facts here. Back in the 2013, 2016 timeframe, I forget if it's 2013 or 2016, when Obama basically said, we're done with basically launching from US soil, we're no longer going to have NASA do and that's what kind of sparked a lot of SpaceX and ULA and a lot of these other privatized companies to kind of come to fruition, was kind of that no longer is this going to be run by the public sector, it's going to be run more by the private sector. And you saw that kind of like death pill that the US kind of took, and it really put us back a couple years to the point where you had to rely on private sector like Rocket Lab, etc., to kind of come and fill that void. So the fact that you have this kind of intergovernment sort of what's the word I'm looking for, competition, and you have all these other folks that are launching, trying to get to the moon, it just means that I don't think the United States will let them kind of beat us in that respect. And so I think in the short term, I think the government contracts are very good. And I think that there's no problem with them. Now, 5-10 years down the road, I can't say. But I think the next 5 years is pretty straightforward until there's some sort of big finding, or the US gets to Mars or something like that, and everyone kind of puts a halt or something to their space race. Then I think we're okay. I think that the reason why we're going so fast after this right now is because other countries like India, China, and many others have started to catch up. And if they weren't catching up, I don't think we'd be as adamant, right? And I don't think we would have as many contracts going out to some of these private companies. But because they're on a, basically race to get to the moon, we've kind of let 40 years of an advantage kind of dwindle behind us. Right, we landed there in the 60s, and we haven't really been doing too much. We haven't really been back since the 70s. So to put another person on the moon again just establishes our dominance in terms of being able to have engineering. It's not just like a necessity. It's more of like an engineering feat and being able to do it on a private basis, etc. I think, to me, that's what's the drive. So if we just continue to get to the next level of Mars, Venus, all these other opportunities, we might innovate and engineer ourselves out of having to work for another 20 years. And so it might put a pause once again on some of the spending that's going on. But for the next 5 years, I think it's okay.
Yeah, it's very interesting how Palantir is so similar to Rocket Lab in this regard, that Palantir also has a government section and a commercial section. And Rocket Lab also delivers a lot for the government. And I believe that they're currently delivering mostly for the government and less for commercial. And Adam Spice, the CEO, on the Monday investor call even talked about this, that the reason why they are even happy to go after government contracts is because they have, when they make a contract with the government, they know that they're getting paid, as opposed to like making contracts with new space startups. You don't know if their money is going to run out, if they're going to go bankrupt in the process. And I can see how at the stage where Rocket Lab is currently, it's super important for them to know that if they develop Neutron, or if they develop certain things, that the customer that is there, like, they are going to get paid for it, because they don't really have a buffer of being able to build a rocket and then the customer says, never mind, I changed my mind, and then they have a rocket that is not used for anything. And on top of it, the government very often pays for the development of certain things, like Neutron, or like this SDA contract, where the development of the satellites is included in the contract. And I think that's super beneficial at the stage where Rocket Lab is. And yes, in the future, I would like to see government phase out. It's definitely never going to go away, because government has to monitor the weather and the carbon in space, and maybe the traffic, maybe other satellites. The military is always going to be there, but I would like to see the commercial sector become a bigger and bigger part of Rocket Lab. But everything in its due course. Cool. So the next topic that I want to take up is, there has been an interview with a little known space company CEO called Stoke Space. And I don't know if you have heard about them, Matt. They have a very interesting new concept to reusability. And what is so interesting with this company is that the CEO got the best space CEO award this year or last year, beating out Elon Musk. Like, they were the front runners, and then he's the one who won. And just to explain it a little bit, like, they don't have a rocket engine like this. What you see here is like somehow a ring, like it's one engine, and they somehow like flow through the gas that is going to combust. And this, what you see on the bottom, is a huge heat shield that is somehow like put together with their tank. And then as the cryogenically chilled rocket fuel runs through there, like, that's the one that basically keeps the heat shield cold. And they are very much claiming that they will be able to land the rocket and then refly it within a few hours, because it's top to bottom designed with this purpose in mind. And they did an interview on YouTube with NASA's space flight. And I really recommend even Rocket Lab investors to listen to this interview, because the guy is so down to earth. He speaks about how the space industry is. And he actually, Matt, it's so funny how in sync you are with this, that he specifically talked about like having the space station. And he thinks that it's really good for the space industry if Super Heavy succeeds. And he thinks that it's going to make a lot of technology available, and it's going to result in having multiple space stations that is going to be put up by SpaceX. But then he said that SpaceX does the heavy lifting, and then all these space stations, they will need food taken up, trash taken down, and you don't necessarily need a Starship Heavy to deliver pizza to this space station, because it's just out of sync. Like, it's too big for that small purpose. And he thinks that this will open up the space industry for other players, and the SpaceX Heavy is going to be a very prominent player, but there is definitely space for many other players to be in this space.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's and they have gotten very little funding. As far as I understand, so far they're up to 100 million in funding. And the guy talks about how frugal they are with spending the money. And I get a lot of like Rocket Lab-esque vibes on like, for example, he refuses to buy like fixed equipment in the factory, because like, if you buy an equipment that would make a certain type of Rocket Lab engine, then you sort of like lock yourself in, and then you can't innovate, and he thinks it's a lot better to not have any of these machines until, I guess, much later in their design. And yeah, very, very good interview, highly recommended.
Is there any particular episodes you wanted to watch, or just mentioning it to the community?
No, I'm just mentioning it. It's a long interview, and I listened to it today while my son was playing hockey, and yeah, I didn't have time to tabulate it out. But
No, I'll have to give it a listen.
yeah,
Definitely will have to give it a listen.
awesome, cool. And we have a next flight for our Electron rocket, which has just been, or hasn't just been announced, but the time of it has been recently announced. And the name of the mission is 4 of a kind. It's going to deliver 4 Lemur satellites, and it's going to be this Thursday. And I'm hoping I can live stream it, but I think it's going to be at some weird ass time for you, Matt.
It is what it is. Yeah.
I think it will be like 3 o'clock in the morning or something.
Yeah, it'll be like midnight to 1 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Anyways, if you're up for it, we could maybe live stream it together.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see. Depends on the day, but there'll be many opportunities to look at them throughout the year.
Yeah. And by the way,
I really did like the cartoon that they had for the particular launch. I thought it was really creative.
this one.
Sorry, the patch. And I actually might buy this one actually because I've actually been looking for some to like buy and like give to my nephews and stuff as like shirts and like stuff like that. And I actually am looking to potentially buy each one of the patches themselves. So really cool. The design work on some of these is cool. And before I didn't really look at it, but I was always kind of questioning why they had the lemur. Now it makes a lot more sense knowing that they're lemur satellites. So I don't know what the acronym stands for, but I was when I saw the patch, I was like, I don't know why there's this lemur on here, but now it makes more sense.
They have it here somewhere. It's low Earth something. Oh, they had it here. Oh yeah, here. Low Earth multi-use receiver satellites.
Got it.
And as far as I understand, these satellites are going to be actually monitoring other satellites in space, and making calculations on their orbits, and making sure things don't crash. So it's very interesting. It's like a satellite constellation monitoring satellite constellations.
Mm-hmm. Satellite traffic controller.
Yeah, satellite traffic controller.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, Matt, I haven't seen any launches announced other than this. I think there's supposed to be 5 launches this quarter.
Isn't it 8? Let me check.
Pull up the manifest. I'm curious. 8. I don't remember being 8. That'd be awesome if there's 8.
There was one quarter when it was 8. I was also wondering, like, aren't we supposed to have like every 2 weeks now launches, and then we are going on week 3, and this is the first launch. But I guess they're queuing them up. They're playing this whack-a-mole with the customers. So
I guess it depends on when the satellites are ready. Yeah.
I don't know why my computer is so laggy when I'm sharing the tab. No, 5 launches, and I guess they missed one launch in Q4, so I would guess 6.
Okay, interesting. And Q3 is the late one. Okay, I don't know why I thought Q2 was going to be the late one. Okay, so we have a good first half year. I'm really curious. So that ends up being 5 plus 6, so 11, potentially up to 12 in the first half of the year. So, for the next 6 months, I can kind of keep track. I don't know why I thought Q2 was only going to be 3 launches. So that makes me happy. Because I was hoping like we'd get the 5-6 launches in Q1, and then I was like, well, we're going to reduce cadence again. It's like, are we going to be able to ramp it up? But if we're able to accomplish, one every say 3 weeks or so, we should be okay for Q1, and then it'll probably be one every 1.5-2 weeks, I guess, for Q2.
Yeah. That's going to be very interesting. Okay, a question. So if they fail with this manifest, so let's say that instead of getting these 11 or 12 launches in H1 of this year, we get 6. Is that a bearish sign for you, or how would you look at that?
I don't know. I think. Sorry. Sorry. Repeat the question. Sorry, I was thinking about something else.
No, because it feels like they have a problem with, like when they say that we're going to have this many launches, like it's not really in their control to fulfill that manifest, And so let's say that we are expecting in the H1 11 to 12 launches and we get 6. Like, would that be a bearish sign for you, or how would you look at that?
I would just double check and wait for the conference calls. I mean, I know how volatile this is. I think what would scare me a little bit maybe is going back to kind of the different contractors and whomever are renting out this manifest for 2024. Is it diverse enough, right? Because the thought process was, at least from what Peter and Alex basically had said, or Spice said, I don't know, I keep calling him Alex. What Spice had said is if somebody were to delay, they would have the opportunity to bring someone potentially forward, right? And so the hope would be is even if somebody isn't as prepared, and they might have to delay from 1Q to 3Q of 2024, that they would be able to bring in somebody that is looking to launch in 1Q. So the hope is if that's the case, they wouldn't be able to. So if that's the case and they do actually only launch 6 or 8, I'd be very keen to listen to the conference call and hear, because that would probably be within the first 1 or 2 questions that what I would anticipate. Or I would hope that they announce it straight up off the bat and don't wait for the Q&A section. They straight up say, these are the reasons why we didn't hit our 1Q 6 launch goal for the year. Because if I remember correctly, I don't recall them calling out specifically how many launches they would have per quarter in the 2022 third quarter or fourth quarter conference call. I could go back and check. I think that they said that they were going to try to get 11 or 12 or something this year, meaning 2023. So anyway, just some thought process, but I don't think it would scare me per se.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the reason. Like
what would scare me is if it never gets to that cadence of 6+ launches per quarter. That'd be where I'd start scratching my head a little bit.
All right. Then the next thing I want to check with you. Oh, I shared the wrong thing. So there was this tweet by Rocket Lab, and I'm sure you have seen this: new year, new career. This year, we're launching more rockets than ever before. This we know. Bringing Neutron to the pad for the first time, and bringing new and exciting spacecraft, building new and exciting spacecraft constellations. So is this a confirmation that they are on track with Neutron, do you think? Or this was just some clueless HR guy didn't know he would move the markets with this tweet, and he accidentally tweeted this out, like the SEC with the Bitcoin?
I think that they're continuing to grow, and I think that they're just making sure that they have the right people. And you have to think they're still going to be doing R&D and innovating, right? So even if they know what they're doing with star trackers or solar panels or etc., they're going to still need to have excess employees to not just fill out what they are currently needing to fulfill, but also making sure that they continue to innovate and improve the efficiency of those products. So anyway, I think that with what they're doing, it pays to have excess capital. People are cheap, and I think a lot of people don't recognize that. The problem is just overhiring and preventing inefficiencies within an organization is very different. So if you make sure that you have people that are focused and not sitting on their laurels and operating and making sure that things are getting delivered. And then you have a separate R&D team that's also very focused on delivering, that's okay. But if you start to just bloat the organization just for the sake of bloating, I see that happen all the times, and you end up losing company culture and people become lazy. And that's where things might not do well. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent.
All right. So I think that was all the topics that I had this week. Matt, are you adding to your Rocket Lab, or what is the strategy that you're currently using on Rocket Lab when we
I added what was it, Monday, Tuesday? I don't remember. I added about, what was it, 1,800 shares. I think I sold, it was about $10,000 worth. I think I sold something. Yeah, it was a nice chunk. I think I sold some like dividend ETF that I had for quite some time, and I just wanted to get to a place where I get closer and closer to 10,000 shares. So I think right now, excuse me, I'm a sleepy baby this day. I think I'm up to like 6,800 shares because I was at 4,000 before. I thought I was up to 5,000 before, so I was up to 4,000 before. I purchased another 1,800 shares. Sorry, I lied. I had 4,000 shares. No, I'm getting confused with Palantir now. I'm fairly confident that I have 6,800 shares. So let me just double check really quick, because I'm getting to the place now where I'm buying so many, but I also have a cash secured put at $5 for February. So let me just double check. I'm not sharing my screen. Okay, good. So I have in my one account, I have, yeah, okay, that's right. So in my one account now I have 6,000. The other account I have 800 shares. So yes, I have 6,800 shares. Yeah. And then I have another 2,500 in the wings. If it goes and hangs out below $5, then I'll probably let that execute, or maybe I'll let it rewrite it for March or something like that, collect another couple 20-30 cents or something like that per share. But the hope is to get close to 10,000 shares by the end of the year, and then probably park it. And if there's more confidence news like that, this SDA thing really got me fired up in a good way, and it makes me really just. I was sitting there one night and I was just like, these dividends are great. I was like, but it's like what, $80 a month or something like that. I was like, it's not enough to really like get me juiced up. And so I was like, I'll take this 10 grand or whatever it was to put it over into, which was a portion of, that position. I was like, and put this over into Rocket Lab, which I am very confident that with what we're executing here, we'll get to about a $10 to $12 billion valuation. But if we continue down the path that we are, I'm very confident we'll be talking about a $25 to $50 billion organization within a 10 to 15 year time frame. So I was just kind of like scratching my head to be like, so why am I being so risk averse? And I was just like, what's the worst that happens? I lose a little bit of money. What's the best that happens? What's the worst that happens? Like, I could get over what's the way I want to phrase this? I think I could get over losing a little bit of money, but what I couldn't get over is living with the lifelong knowing that I had the opportunity to invest in a great company like Rocket Lab and it succeeds, and knowing that I was too scared to put in enough money to really make a difference. And so I kept going back to where I wanted to be, which is like, I want this to be a $500,000 position, and I think it's going to grow by X, Y, and Z. So it's like, if that's the case, then I want to have 10,000 shares, because if I have 10,000 shares and I want to grow into a $300,000, $400,000 stock in terms of my position, I need 10,000 shares. It's going to be $30, $40 per share, right? If I stayed at the 5,000, then I would need it to be $80, $90 a share to get to where I want to be. And it's just like, that's starting to push it, right? Like, that's started to mean that it needs to go to being $100 billion or more stock for it to get to where I need it to be. So I was like, you know what? I was like, it's a smarter to kind of just increase my position size. So what if I lose, whatever the size is now? It's close, I guess, to 30, 40 grand. I was like, if I lose 30, 40 grand, I'm not going to be that upset, and that's a lot to some of you guys. So apologies, but I've been at this for quite some time and that's a hobby of mine. So, but if it went to, and I did the back calculations being like, man, I only stayed at 2,000 shares and I'd be talking about it for fucking ever. So I was like, let me just, take a lesson from Big Dick Vince over in Europe and put some damn money towards
it. Here are some results.
Alexa's listening. She's upset. Yeah, stop being such a pain in the ass and actually put my money where my mouth is and buy some damn shares. So
yeah, that's awesome. And I also have to say special thanks to you, because I'm doing, I don't know what you can call it, the poor man editing to Rocket Lab, because you're the one who, this is really not financial advice, but you're the one who opened my eye to the possibility of writing puts and then using the margin on the account as a security in case the puts get executed. And if you write them smart, then they will probably not be executed. So this is what I'm doing. I'm writing puts, and I wrote some 2025 January puts and got paid $1.20 for shares. And if I would get executed on these, like I would get those shares for $3.80. And I mean, that's just the dream price for.
Yeah. 380 would be good. Yeah, and that's the cool thing is like it's always going to be, if the price kind of hangs out here at the $5 mark, I mean, every month that passes, you should be able to get 5-10 cents off of that, And
Yeah.
so, say we get to a place where we're hanging out in 6 months' time, and it's June, July timeframe. The June, July 2026s are going to be coming up, and at that point, you could look and you could probably see that there's probably going to be a June, July 2025, and you could say, oh, let me re-roll it, right? Like maybe I could get $1.50 or something like that. And you could take that opportunity. I do that all the time. I had a $5 put for January 19th that I just rolled for February timeframe. And it's just like a couple contracts. I think it's for me to just get a little bit of, $20, $30. I think it's only like 1 or 2 contracts. It's nothing big, but it's things like that where you're like, I just did some, I forget what other thing I just wrote puts for, but it's a super easy way if you want to buy more stock. And if you're very confident and you're always going to want to own that position. Now, of course, there's always the opportunity that something comes out about the company that completely changes your mind. Like Wells Fargo, for Wells Fargo, for example, back in 2021, 2022, all the continued bad news that kept coming out, I was like, why am I in this stock? And so, yes, I made a good pretty penny, 80, 100%, buying it during the financial crisis not the financials, the pandemic to where it was in 2020, 2021. I probably got an 80, 100% return, but I didn't feel comfortable being involved in a company that the culture was continuing to deteriorate even after they moved out the old CEO and things like that. So, you can change your mind about things as well, but I think puts are a good way for people to potentially put their money where their mouth is. And in this particular case, if you're confident that you're going to be putting, let's just say $20,000, $30,000 in the market in the future, the portfolio size in which you have today allows you to take advantage of that. And what's the worst that happens? You lose a little bit of money.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially on these puts, if you were going to buy the stock anyways, then you're getting a lower entry price, and then if you were going to lose anyways, then you just lose less.
Yeah.
So,
and the nice thing is like, say you did get put those those shares, technically, even if it went down to $4.50 or $4.70 or whatever, you could turn it right around and sell it. And you technically would have made money, right? So because technically you're only losing money if the stock goes below $3.80. at that point, right? Because you're agreeing to buy it at $5, you pocketed $1.20 per share for the meantime. So in that respect, it's not a bad deal. You're kind of locking in what, a 24%.
Yeah, it's crazy on the bank's money. Like this is what I'm thinking every day. Like I got a 20%, like locked in a 20-something% return on not even my own money. Like how did I do this?
Yeah, just be cautious, man. I'll just be very blunt with you. Be disciplined.
Yeah, I am.
And I'll tell you, because I'll just be blunt with you. It's how I lost, $50,000-$60,000. I still don't know the number because I don't want to look at it. But when they gave me the opportunity to write naked calls on GameStop, and I wrote 6 contracts and said, there's no way that GameStop's going to go above $100 or $140 a share. And I woke up the next morning and it was $200 a share. I owed,
Ouch.
6 times $40 times 100, right? So it was however many dollars a contract. It was like $66,000 per contract, or whatever it was, times 6, right? Something stupid. So it ended up being a crap ton of money that I ended up having to sell other stocks to kind of pay for. And so I just don't want that to happen to anybody. So if that's the case, just when you do these things, just be cautious that you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And I took the gamble. I was like, I'll make $8,000 or something by selling this naked call. And yes, it was a once in a generation sort of thing that happened, but I ended up losing like $60,000 instead. So
yeah. I mean, here, just so everybody gets the full picture. So like we have a schedule with my dad on how we send money to the broker account. And then we are anyways planning to send money in January 2025 to the account. So I'm sort of like bridging that money in. And this is why I thought it was like such a perfect thing with this put option, because I basically lock in a gain, and we would, like, if Rocket Lab would go down to this price, we would anyways be buying it. So it's like it's the only way we can lose on it is if we're wrong about Rocket Lab, and hopefully we're not.
Yeah, I think it's the thing that's beautiful is theta decay, whether it's selling covered calls, whether it's selling naked puts like you are, it's selling cash secured puts. The thing that I enjoy most about it, rather than being on the buying side of options, is that time is always going to be working against you in options if you're buying them. But in this particular case, time is always working with you, because technically you're the one that sets the 100% profit margin that you're going to get off the trade. And what I mean by that is in your case, you wrote the $1.20 per contract, or whether it's $1.10, whatever, but $1.10, let's just say $1.20, whatever. But every single day, you're going to decrease by a penny or half a penny, if it stays at, even if it stays at $5 a share or it goes to $4.99, that contract price will go from $1.20 to, let's just say, 10 cents in the matter of a year's time. And you can close it out whenever you want, right? So you could literally go in and say, and this is the cool thing, is you could go out and use that money. Like you could literally go to and take out that money out of your account and go buy groceries and stuff like that, right? So it's for people that need that sort of money or need that sort of capital, right? And their portfolio is structured in a way that they can do it. That derivative contract allows them to do a lot of different things. But
So let's put it this way: if that trade ends up being a winning trade, I need to like buy you a big gift or something, because it was you who opened up my eye to it. If it doesn't go my way, I'll blame you forever. No, I'm kidding. But
I'll be okay with that. I'll be okay with that. Because let's just be honest, if it doesn't go well by 2025 and you have to buy them, and let's just say Rocket Lab went to zero, I'll already be upset because I lost $50,000 or whatever it is. So not $50,000, 30, 40 grand, whatever my shares are worth these days. So anyway, it'll just be another cherry on top of my sadness that's already that I'm already going through anyway. So, but really hope it works out for you. I think I'm very confident that it will, and every day that passes, I get more and more confident about the company. So
yeah, same here. Cool. This has been an awesome episode. Thank you, my co-host, for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's going to be an interesting next week. Hopefully, we will have a green week, but we will see.
We will see. Yeah, we will see.
Yeah.
Cool.
So everyone have a great Sunday, and that is tomorrow also for me. I'm not that ahead of you in time, but yeah. Cool. So see you, everyone.
Cool.
Ciao.
Thank you, brother. Talk to you soon. Cheers.
Cheers.